Welcome to In Focus SoCal. I'm Tanya McRae. We're celebrating Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month to acknowledge those who have played an integral role in shaping our country. The month of May coincides with two important milestones in AAPI history: the arrival of the first Japanese immigrant on May 7, 1843, and the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10, 1869. The majority of the workers who laid the tracks were Chinese immigrants, but a little more than a decade later, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 banned immigration to the U.S. and prevented Asians from becoming citizens. It wasn't until 1965 that more immigrants of various ethnic groups were allowed into the U.S. Now, more than 28% of immigrants in the U.S. are AAPI, and nearly 7% of the population identify as Asian or Pacific Islander. California has the largest Asian American population, with many calling Los Angeles County home. In honor of AAPI Heritage Month, I visited several neighborhoods around Los Angeles to learn more about their diverse culture and history. The ornate architecture, incredible food, wonderful places to shop, authentic artwork, natural beauty, and a lot of fascinating history. These are just a few of the many reasons why people enjoy exploring the unique Asian American and Pacific Islander communities around Los Angeles. I met up with Dr. Julie Fun, an assistant professor of Asian American Studies at Cal State LA, to tour some of these interesting neighborhoods. Our first stop, Chinatown. Located in downtown LA, Chinatown is a vibrant center of culture, commerce, community, and tourism. The first Chinese immigrants came to Los Angeles in 1852, and as more arrived, they congregated on Calle de los Negros, Street of the Dark-Hued Ones, which was just a one-block-long alley between El Pueblo Plaza and Old Arcadia Street.
Even though this is a very iconic, like Central Plaza is very iconic to Chinatown, this was actually not the first Chinatown. The first Chinatown was actually across the way where Union Station now stands, where there were 3,000 Chinese that lived there, but because they wanted to put Union Station there, they basically just raised the whole area and just put in Union Station.
In 1938, the nation's first modern American Chinatown was established at Central Plaza, less than a mile from Union Station. It provided a hub that turned into the famous and vibrant Chinatown that we all know today.
The Chinese came here for various reasons. One, because of what they called Gold Mountain, that there was gold that was found here in California. But the other reason was also because that many people, many countries that had formerly slaves, they wanted to replace their slave labor with cheap Chinese labor.
In those days, Julie says, the Chinese worked in agriculture, building railroads, and in the service industries. They also worked in the food industry and began opening their own restaurants. And here's a fun fact.
Chinese food is the most eaten food in the United States, above and beyond burgers. So most people will order chow mein before they will order actually a burger. So, and the largest mom and pop restaurants are actually Chinese restaurants.
Most of Chinatown's businesses and activity is still centered around Central Plaza. You'll find a lot of great restaurants and stores here, and you can even pay homage to the famous Chinese-American martial artist and actor Bruce Lee. In traditional Chinese culture, seeing a dragon is a blessing, so you can appreciate seeing one when you admire mural artwork like the Chinese celestial dragon painted in 1941. At the Hop Louie restaurant, you can admire the 5-tiered golden pagoda that was modeled on the famous Summer Palace in Beijing and has attracted not only hungry tourists, but also dozens of movies and TV shows. Next on the tour is Little Tokyo. Established in 1905, it's the second oldest neighborhood in Los Angeles, and it's one of only 3 remaining historic Japantowns in the nation. This neighborhood has survived the 1918 pandemic, the Exclusion Act of 1924, the Great Depression, and the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. Now it's trying to get through COVID-19.
This particular place is near and dear to my heart because during this pandemic, businesses like Cafe Dulce with James Choi and Nancy Yap from the nonprofit Cause, they established a Communities Feeding Communities program that helped these businesses here to not die. So they fed like over 10,000 people. They brought over 200,000 back into the community here. And so, that's like a salient feature of Asian American communities. This ability to help our communities, this ability to help each other.
History and culture come together everywhere in Little Tokyo. The Japanese American Museum is home to a lot of both. The Japanese Village Plaza has a variety of food and shops, and this is the hub for anime lovers of all kinds. This is also where you will find many Buddhist temples and quiet little places for peaceful moments. And you can join people from around the world by placing a note on the wishing tree.
According to Japanese custom, trees actually have spirits.
I wish for a blessed life full of joy, health, love, happiness, and wise decisions. I wish for that too. Next on the tour is historic Filipino town.
Filipinos have been here even before the United States. Folks don't realize it, but Filipinos have been here since the 1500s. When they came with the Spanish Manila galleons into the United States.
Filipinos began to buy homes in this area in the 1950s, after the historic Little Manila community in downtown was displaced by a city-led revitalization effort.
What you see there is this beautiful mural, right, that actually talks about, the history of Filipinos in the United States.
Historic Filipino town was recognized officially in 2002. And in recent years, the neighborhood has become quite trendy with a lot of bars and restaurants, and even got a hip nickname, Hi-Fi. In 2019, it was named the 5th coolest neighborhood in the world by Time Out magazine. There is a misconception that Asian American communities have deliberately separated themselves in America and here in Los Angeles. Can you explain how that separation actually happened?
I think that this kind of misconception that the Chinese are for the Chinese or even the Japanese are for the Japanese, what this neglects is the kind of institutionalized racism that has occurred in the United States that have created these pockets of these ethnic neighborhoods.
Julie points out redlining and exclusionary racial covenant laws that originally created these small, tight-knit Asian American communities.
For example, the creation of East West Bank, right, a banking institution, it was because literally that they were not able to borrow money from white institutions, never mind, being able to create certain businesses or live in the places that they wanted to.
The next neighborhood we checked out was Koreatown. Koreans began immigrating to this section of town that goes from mid-Wilshire north to the edge of Hollywood in the 1960s. The area was the epicenter of Golden Age Hollywood and still has a lot of original Art Deco architecture. K-Town, as it's also known, is highly diverse ethnically, with half the residents being Latino and a third being of Asian descent. The 1992 riots had a significant impact on this community during a time when Black and Korean Americans were facing racial strife. There was $50 million worth of fire and looting damage done across LA, half of which was on Korean-owned businesses. But Julie says nonprofit organizations and community leaders came together and rebuilt it stronger than ever.
One of the things that I find that is wonderful that emerged post-1992 with Saigu is that it is the coalition building. So African American, Korean Americans, and other Asian Americans, the Latino community here, we have built coalitions that are based on, our faith, based on social justice, based on our, us living together in a community that is very, very close.
Many people say that Koreatown is the one place that you can come morning, noon, or night and something will be open. Is that true?
Absolutely true. There are more 24-hour businesses here than almost any part of LA. And that's like fantastic. So you can come here and, go to the mall, you can come here and go to a spa, you can go to an indoor golf place, you can go to have the most wonderful food.
Heading further south, in a section of Artesia, you'll find Little India.
A lot of Indians came into the United States to work in IT, to work as engineers, to become students and grad students. And the history of Indians in California, it's actually as complex as India itself. So there isn't, in many ways, one Indian person. And there's quite a few different Indian groups, right? So there is no just like one Indian person. There are folks that come not just from India, right? They come also from Pakistan. They also come from Bangladesh.
The last neighborhood on our tour is also the newest. It's Thaitown, a 6-block area flanking Hollywood Boulevard between Normandy and Western Avenues.
The establishment of the community happened formally in 1999. That came from a lot of advocacy from the community, especially from Chanchinit Motrel, who developed the Thai Community Center. And it is, I believe, the only and the first Thai town in the United States.
All of these communities have a unique history, but they're all an integral part of American history and of the diversity that makes Los Angeles so special.
The diversity that is Asian America, that has like over 24 distinctive groups. We speak over 100 languages here in Los Angeles. That this is the history of the United States. It's the history of Los Angeles when we talk about Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. We're a very, very diverse group of people who are all Americans as well.